Fleetwood Mac is remembered for smooth harmonies, Grammy-winning albums, and glamorous stadium tours. But Lindsey Buckingham says the truth was far darker. The band's massive success came at a devastating emotional cost. He once said he absolutely hated the chaos that surrounded their rise to superstardom, even as they created one of the best-selling albums of all time. How did heartbreak, feuds, and relentless pressure shape one of rock's most legendary records? And why does Buckingham still look back with so much pain? When Lindsey Buckingham joined Fleetwood Mac in late 1974 alongside his partner Stevie Nicks, the band was in transition. Founded as a British blues group, Fleetwood Mac had already seen multiple lineup changes and moderate success. Mick Fleetwood, impressed by Buckingham's guitar work on a demo, offered him a spot in the band. Buckingham agreed, but only if Nicks was included too. This decision changed music history. The band's self-titled 1975 album marked a turning point. With Buckingham and Nicks' addition, Fleetwood Mac's sound transformed into a mix of pop-rock brilliance and emotional storytelling. Hits like Rhiannon and Landslide introduced a new era, while Buckingham's intricate guitar work and production instincts elevated the group's music. But behind the scenes, the band's relationships were fracturing. Buckingham and Nicks' romantic partnership began crumbling, and John and Christine McVie's marriage was falling apart. The emotional tension, however, became fuel for their creativity. The group poured their heartbreak into the writing and recording of Rumours, released in 1977. Rumours became a cultural phenomenon, selling over 40 million copies worldwide. Songs like Go Your Own Way, written by Buckingham, captured the raw pain of the band's struggles. Buckingham later admitted, "We were all breaking up, but somehow we made something magical." He had become the driving force behind Fleetwood Mac's sound, but at a steep personal cost. While Rumours catapulted Fleetwood Mac to superstardom, its creation nearly tore the band apart. Recording sessions were fraught with tension, fueled by cocaine, heartbreak, and long hours in the studio. Buckingham, acting as both guitarist and producer, became obsessed with achieving perfection. His relentless approach created groundbreaking arrangements, but also heightened tensions within the band. In interviews, Buckingham has been brutally honest about this period. He called the process torture but magic, saying he absolutely hated the emotional toll of working so closely with ex-partners and feuding bandmates. The irony was clear. The pain that nearly destroyed them was exactly what made Rumours a masterpiece. The album's success placed enormous pressure on the band. They toured relentlessly, performing night after night while their personal lives continued to unravel. Buckingham struggled under the weight of fame and creative expectations, feeling trapped in a cycle that prioritized commercial hits over his experimental ambitions. Still, Rumours became a defining album of the 1970s, cementing Buckingham's status as one of rock's greatest musical architects. What fans saw was glamour and success. What Buckingham remembers is exhaustion, heartbreak, and chaos. The cracks in the band's foundation were only beginning to show, and soon they'd lead to a breaking point. By the mid-1980s, Fleetwood Mac was one of the biggest bands in the world, but the internal tensions that had fueled Rumours only grew worse. Buckingham, who had become the group's unofficial producer and creative director, felt suffocated by the pressure to replicate their commercial success. In 1987, the band released Tango in the Night, an album that once again showcased Buckingham's meticulous craftsmanship. He produced the record almost single-handedly, layering vocals and experimenting with new recording techniques. The album was a huge hit, featuring songs like Big Love and Little Lies, but the process left Buckingham drained. "It felt like we were a machine," he said later. "It was no longer about the music. It was about keeping the machine running." After the album's release, Buckingham stunned fans and bandmates by quitting Fleetwood Mac. He cited the toxic environment, endless drama, and creative frustration as reasons for walking away. His departure caused chaos within the band, leading to reshuffled lineups and a sense that Fleetwood Mac's golden era had come to an end. For Buckingham, stepping away was a way to reclaim his sanity and artistic freedom. He poured himself into solo projects, exploring experimental sounds that Fleetwood Mac's commercial focus didn't allow. But leaving also meant giving up the band that had made him a rock legend, a bittersweet choice that haunted him for years. A decade later, in 1997, Buckingham rejoined Fleetwood Mac for The Dance, a reunion tour and live album that reignited fan excitement. The performances were electric, and the band seemed to have recaptured some of their magic. Yet Buckingham's return came with mixed emotions. On stage, he delivered powerhouse renditions of classics like Go Your Own Way, but offstage, old tensions simmered. The band's history of breakups and betrayals was never far from the surface, and Buckingham admitted that their chemistry was as much about conflict as it was about music. Fleetwood Mac was always a soap opera set to music, he once said. Despite the drama, the reunion was a commercial triumph. The Dance went multi-platinum, and the tour sold out arenas around the world. For fans, it was proof that the band's legacy was bigger than its dysfunction. For Buckingham, it was a reminder of why he'd left in the first place. Years later, in 2018, Buckingham was abruptly fired from the band after disagreements over touring schedules. The dismissal shocked fans and reignited headlines about the group's volatile dynamics. Even after decades of fame, Fleetwood Mac's story remained as dramatic as ever. Buckingham's feelings were clear. He loved the music, but he absolutely hated the cost of making it. Fleetwood Mac's music defined a generation, but behind the glossy album covers and sold-out arenas, the band was a battlefield. Lindsey Buckingham's artistry had helped turn Rumours into one of the best-selling albums of all time, but the emotional toll was immense. In interviews, he reflected on the sacrifices that came with success: sleepless nights in the studio, broken relationships, and the constant pressure to deliver hits. Fans were heartbroken when Buckingham was fired in 2018, with Stevie Nicks later confirming tensions between them were at the heart of the split. The band carried on without him, but for many, Fleetwood Mac without Lindsey Buckingham never felt the same. The reaction from the music world was swift. Tributes poured in, recognizing his role as a visionary guitarist, songwriter, and producer. Critics pointed out that while Fleetwood Mac had always been a group effort, Buckingham's creative leadership was irreplaceable. Even those who had clashed with him admitted that his genius had been a driving force. His story is a reminder that legendary music often comes with a heavy price. Buckingham had built a career on perfectionism, but he also paid for it with personal heartache, proving that rock and roll glory is rarely as glamorous as it looks. Today, Lindsey Buckingham is celebrated not only as one of rock's greatest guitarists, but also as a boundary-pushing producer who redefined pop and rock. His work on Rumours and Tusk continues to inspire musicians decades later, and his solo records show that his creativity never stopped evolving. Despite years of drama, Buckingham has spoken warmly of the band's music, acknowledging that their tension was part of what made Fleetwood Mac extraordinary. "It was a soap opera," he once said, "but that's what fueled the art." Now in his 70s, Buckingham tours solo, performing classics alongside new material, proving that his artistry remains as sharp as ever. His story stands as a powerful lesson. Even when the process feels like torture, as he once put it, the music created in those moments can become timeless. For Fleetwood Mac fans, Lindsey Buckingham will always be the heart of the band's sound, the genius who gave them their most iconic songs, even if he absolutely hated how they came to be. Thanks for watching. Click here to check another video and make sure to subscribe to our channel.